Are you open to providing aid to California without any conditions at all?
I think we've got to have a serious conversation about that. Obviously, there's been water resource mismanagement, forest management mistakes, all sorts of problems. And it does come down to leadership, and it appears to us that state and local leaders were derelict in their duty in many respects. So that's something that has to be factored in. I think there should probably be conditions on that aid. That's my personal view. We'll see what the consensus is. I haven't had a chance to socialize that with any of the members over the weekend because we've all been very busy, but it'll be part of the discussion for sure.
What about the debt limit increase? What about tying the debt limit increase to it?
There's some discussion about that, but we'll see where it goes.
The depravity of the Republican Party truly has no limits if they somehow always find a new way to show their contempt for the broader American public. Just look at how these smug, entitled monsters...
Why should other states be bailing out California for choosing the wrong people to run their state?
We shouldn't be. They got 40 million people in that state, and they're voting these imbeciles in office. And they continue to do it.
Framing the outbreak of the fires as a failure of the individual responsibility of California voters not only gives the right wing an avenue of attack against Dems as a whole, but also distracts people from thinking about the true underlying causes of the fires, namely climate change, corruption in local politics, and of course unchecked corporate greed.
But they are just overwhelmed by these inner city woke policies with the people that vote for them. I don't mind sending them some money, but unless they show that they're going to change their ways and get back to building dams and storing water, doing the maintenance with the brush and the trees and everything that everybody else does in the country, and they refuse to do it, they don't deserve anything, to be honest with you, unless they show us they're going to make some changes, Chris.
It's always easier to blame wokeness or communism or whatever other boogeyman the right is scared of at the moment than grapple with the reality that the ideology you worked your whole life to protect is responsible for the suffering of our fellow Americans.
While radical climate Democrats control California, they control the White House, do you think that when the disaster aid in the Senate comes through, that Congress will put some kind of limits on it, going, we're not wasting it on your nonsense, California, we're getting it to the people who've been hurt?
We certainly should. I certainly wouldn't vote for anything unless we see dramatic change in how they're going to be handling these things in the future. But again, these fires, the disaster, the catastrophe that these fires were, you can't prevent fires, but you can certainly prevent the catastrophe. It's about preventable. So again, it's their fault.
Leave it to the Republicans to victim blame and punish people who just had their entire lives uprooted by a natural disaster. You shouldn't be surprised, though, because this attitude permeates all facets of right-wing politics, from women's healthcare rights to homelessness to workplace harassment and discrimination, and so many other examples. Right-wingers never look to the system creating the conditions for these things to happen and always focus on the individual failures of the victim to explain their situation. And hey, just a quick break in the action. You should go subscribe to my new show, The Rick Strom Show. I'm going to be interviewing people from sports, music, journalists, authors, sports doctors. It's going to be fantastic. Please go subscribe. Thank you.
There can't be a blank check on this, however, because people want to make sure that as rebuilding occurs, as things go on in California, they have to be resilient so that these sorts of things can't happen again. And the policies of the liberal administration out there, I believe, have made these fires worse.
Do you expect, though, that Congress and Republicans will still help these Americans in need, even if they don't like their local politics and the party?
I expect that there will be strings attached to money that is ultimately approved, and it has to do with being ready the next time, because this was a gross failure this time.
Together, I would be for conditions if people can find ways to attach federal conditions to that aid. California has to fix its really poor land management practices that have produced so much damage.
And this was all related to the climate change agenda.
You know, there's a lot of members that aren't there yet on just exactly what this would look like. And I think the Speaker's comments on that were correct. There's going to be a lot of scrutiny, and I'm sure there's going to be some things tied to any aid that's going to make its way to California.
Republican Reps John Barrasso, French Hill, and Scott Fitzgerald have all come in support of adding conditions to any federal aid sent out to California to help our fellow American citizens.
We will certainly help those thousands of homes and families who have been devastated, but we also expect you to change bad behavior. We should look at the same for these blue states who have run away with a broken tax policy. We want to be able to help out our colleagues in New York, California, New Jersey, but we also want those governors need to change their tune now.
While Republican Representative Zach Nunn went a bit further than his colleagues.
I tell you, what that DEI hire said was just incredibly stupid. You just can't do that. When the federal government offers you resources like that, helicopters and Marines on the ground, then you would take that. That just shows an incredible lack of leadership, the inability, and that comes from DEI hires.
As did Rep. Andrew Clyde, who disrespected FEMA Administrator Deanna Criswell by calling her a DEI hire after explaining that being strategic with the placement of first responders is more effective than just throwing as many bodies as possible at these fires.
Like it's been talked about, it's going to have to be in conjunction with some reforms that California hasn't been willing to make on the way they regulate their water and things of that nature, their forest management, all these other things, the things that led to the fires because they weren't prepared. They wasted their taxpayer dollars on all kinds of crazy woke agenda items that they've had and green energy stuff, and they haven't really focused on what keeps their state safe.
Former Chief White House pill pusher Ronnie Jackson wants to tie federal aid to the elimination of woke policies.
And when California in a couple of weeks comes crawling back for federal assistance, Trump should say, listen, I'm not going to give you a dime unless you fire the lesbian Christians. You mandate the proper forest management and stop controlled burns that Newsom has stopped. You cut it out with California's failed diversity, equity, inclusion, homeless spending. You require water capture instead of flushing it into the ocean. We're not going to pay for this anymore. This is your own making.
While Charlie Kirk dropped the dog whistles completely with his fake take on the fires to tie everything together, according to a report from Boston University's Watson Institute for International and Public Affairs from October 7, 2023 to nearly a year later on September 30th, 2024, our country has sent, at minimum, nearly $23 billion, that's with a B, in military spending to join Israel in their government's ethnic cleansing campaign to the Palestinian people and other military operations to benefit the country and the region. Remember, that figure doesn't include other federal assistance programs and another planned $8 billion in weapons that have been shipped by Joe Biden, which was announced just after the new year. With the way our country is run, there's always plenty of money for war, but, never enough for us, the citizens. If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports, and or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.